Hi, and welcome back to Terribly Fun Films. I'm your host Bobby, and we are looking at the third part of the superheroes ranking list. Quick note for those interested, I have seen superhero movies since I began this list. I am not going back and re-adding them. I might do an update later on and just discuss those films and where they would fall. But for the newer superhero films that I have seen, I'm not gonna update this list right now. I'm gonna leave the list as is and maybe do an addendum or something like that later on. With that being said, so this might be cheating, or maybe not. I will let my viewers decide on that. 149 is two movies, but they're the same thing. Here's what I mean. Batman, The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and Part 2 together are my number 149. I put them together, and for the sake of brevity, because my complaints against both are the exact same. They are literally telling one story. They're from the same creators, same voice actors, same directors, same animation department, same everything. They split it up into two halves to wholly tell the story that they are adapting from a comic book that I like. I like The Dark Knight Returns. I need to make that very clear here. This is not an attack on that comic. It's just with the animated direct-to-DVD movie versions of that comic. So yeah, because they are one whole story put together, and because they all come from the exact same people, I am including this as one item, even though it's technically two films. Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. It's not hateable. The animation style is very reminiscent of the original comic and gets that very right. The voice acting is superb, and if this were one film, it'd probably be higher. But in terms of stretching it out to make it two films, they pad it out a lot. So it's really boring, and not a lot happens in either movie. To be fair, to the first film, a few things happen for the first 30 minutes. Then you have like 40 minutes of nothing, 20 minutes of something, and then that movie's over. The second movie is a whole lot of nothing for a really long time, and then you have like a 30-minute ending in which things actually come together and come to a head, and that's not bad. If you had trimmed this down to be one film, I would probably like it more. Such a mess as is, it is tediously dull with long stretches of characters looking out windows and figuring out their philosophies on life and espousing on those philosophies, and you don't care. You, as the viewer, don't care. You just want the movie to move on with its life, and it never does. And it's very frustrating to watch. Darkman was a Sam Raimi film in the 90s starring Liam Neeson and Frances McDormand, and we will discuss that movie in a little bit. It did well enough that it got 2 made-for-TV sequels, and we're discussing the third one first, as it's really cheap. Really cheap. Even by made-for-TV standards, at the time, this movie looks bad. It looks cheap, it feels cheap, and the plot is very predictable and very sad in that regard because of how predictable it is. Arnold Vosloo takes up Liam Neeson's role as the titular Darkman, and he's not bad in either one of the two films. But the third film is worse than the second movie, I think, because it really feels like they came up with a plot outline for the films, and they hit certain beats, and they're really interchangeable, which makes the third one worse because it came later, obviously. It looks bad. The action isn't that exciting. It's poorly edited. there's just nothing to really get behind in this film. That leads me directly to my next one, 147. It's Darkman 2. For pretty much all the same reasons. Not quite as predictable, obviously. But just as cheap looking, just as poorly edited, just as lackluster action. It's something that could and should have been so much more. Even made for TV films at the time had more energy than this. Really like Darkman. You're just curious to see that character again. I don't think these will actually suit that need, but maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. Me personally, these are boring, poorly edited messes that are more lackluster than anger-inducing. Stan Lee. Stan Lee. Without him, we wouldn't have comics as we know it today. Without him, we wouldn't have comic book movies like we have today. Without him, I probably wouldn't be making this list I'm making right now. Stan Lee, once he left Marvel, started his own various production companies. He set up a few at various stages and things. And these companies have made not just comic books, action figures, and movies. One of those movies was a live-action Sci-Fi Channel film, which was called LIGHTSPEED. You can probably figure out by the title, it's sort of a Flash-esque character in that he can run super fast. So, his name is LIGHTSPEED. Now, before I get into it, I did do a review of the film. If you go to my website, Terribly Fun Films, you can find my written text review of that film, and I do recommend it. It is goofy as shit. It is the definition of terribly fun. It's so bad, it's good. It is delightful, but it's delightful for every wrong reason in the book. The acting is awful. Awful acting. The main character doesn't so much act as he kind of just looks blankly off and recites his lines as if reading them off of cue cards. He has no chemistry with the female lead played by Nicole Eggert, probably best well known for her role in Baywatch. I know her best from a fucking Corey Feldman movie called Blown Away. And then the main bad guy is overacting so much, it's kind of like he saw Jason Connery, who plays our main hero, at his non-acting and decided, oh, I need to balance things out. So he goes so big and so over the top that it's really funny. But it doesn't work because no one else is trying like he is, or because he's trying too much. I don't know. It's very cheap looking. Literally, his costume is made from things he finds at a sporting goods store. That's an actual plot point of the movie. I didn't make that up. To tell you the kind of level we're at in terms of the cheapness of this film. The rubber snake head at the end is remarkable. I'm sorry, not remarkable. Fucking terrible. That's what I meant to say. It's terrible, but it's also great. It's so funny to watch. The speeding effects aren't too bad, to be fair to the film. The speeding effects aren't too bad. If, obviously, done by CGI and whatnot. The action, such as it is kind of goofy and fun, but that's only because it's incomprehensible. From the editing to the staging to the camera blocking and cinematography, it's actually hard to see some of the stuff going on in this film. But when taken overall as a whole, that adds to so bad it's good charm. So the movie does come in at 146, but I do recommend it, only to laugh at though. I forgot I ever watched this until I started making a list here for all this stuff. And I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. I just don't know. Batman Gotham Knight was an anthology series of Batman films in which he's fighting various bad guys. Its big claim to fame, though, is it's meant to tie directly into Christopher Nolan's Batman films in some way. It doesn't, and I don't know why they advertised it that way, and I'm not sure if that's what the movie was marketed or originally designed to be when they made it, but it was marketed that way, and that's kind of awkward. With that being said, it's only okay, as just a series of shorts, basically. Some shorts are better than others, some shorts are just not that good, so you take what you can get. Animation-wise, it's perfectly average. Not the worst I've seen, not the best for direct-to-DVD stuff. Totally average. Voice acting is... I don't actually know. I don't remember if that tells you anything about this movie. It exists, and I watched it, and I promptly moved on with my life, like I'm going to now. X-Men. I've discussed the X-Men before already. I'm going to do so again now with the very first movie. X-Men comes in at 144. It was directed by Bryan Singer, has an amazing cast, and aged about as well as a pile of crap sitting on your lawn for 5 weeks. Which is to say, not very well at all. Everything about the film, from the shot composition, the editing, the costumes, especially the awful costumes. They're terrible. And writing really owe a huge debt to The Matrix. You watch The Matrix, then you immediately watch X-Men, and you can just tell that they were trying to get in on that. And it's kind of sad because there are good things about it. Despite everything I've ever said about the X-Men films, Hugh Jackman is a good Wolverine. James Marsden is a good Cyclops. And Patrick Stewart, only Professor X in the world to me. Yeah, James McAvoy is a good Professor X, but he's playing the same character, only younger. You know what I mean? So that works out, in my opinion. Ian McKellen as Magneto? Hell yeah! He's a great Magneto. In all the films he plays Magneto in, he's a great Magneto. So, what happened to this movie to make it, A, age poorly, The Matrix, and The Matrix got away with it because it's all part of the computer world. It's all part of the simulations, and in the real world they only have so many options available to them. So they kind of make that whole other thing really realistic to the world they created for that film. In the X movies, it's because they saw it and thought it would look cool, but it kind of reeks of its age in that regard. But far more importantly, the plot is dull as shit. I don't know, it's because we've had like 90 million X-Men films all focusing on Wolverine at this goddamn point. Can we please just get on with our lives? We all know Wolverine's story at this point. Can we just get past that for the sweet love of God? I don't know if it's because the editing is really bad and awkward in some places. Not for the entire film, but certain moments. Or if because they don't get political enough. There's this whole thing about a senator who's trying to like ban X-Men or make them register or whatever he's trying to do, who becomes a mutant. That's part of Magneto's plan. And it's kind of promptly dropped in favor of Magneto getting Rogue's powers and doing all the stuff in the big finale with her. So it doesn't actually follow through on political ideas, which is really sad and upsetting, because it could have gone somewhere with that. And it doesn't. And then we have goddamn Halle Berry as Storm. Like, guarantee if she weren't Storm, this movie would be higher on my list. For those who don't know, I hate Halle Berry as an actress. She's the worst actress of all time, in my opinion. She's never been good in anything I've ever seen her in, ever. Now, that doesn't mean she hasn't been better in some things. I still think she's going to be bad in that thing, but some performances are always going to be worse than others, period. But she's terrible, and she's terrible here. She sounds so bored and lifeless that wherever flaws X-Men The Last Stand may have, she's a better actress in that film than in this one, in my opinion. Of course, her writing doesn't help her. To be totally fair to the actress, her writing is shit. You know what happens to a toad when it gets struck by lightning? I realize that that line has kind of become a symbol of some of the stupider elements of not just this first X-Men movie, but all of them. But it really is such a dunderheaded, fucking stupid line that I don't know who thought that line was ever a good idea. So yeah, I don't think the movie works. It's not politically motivated enough. It's aged poorly. The costumes are bad, and shitty writing, and one really bad actress in a main role. All equate to not being good at all. So X-Men is number 144. Number 143 is another DC animated straight-to-DVD movie. That is Justice League Doom. And it was the second one I'd seen from them that I did not much care for. Crisis on Two Earths, which is inferior in every way, was the first film that they had put out that I was like, this isn't good. Up until that point, they had released a series of films that were at least good, or maybe okay with very memorable moments. So, great. This falls more in line with Crisis on Two Earths, where it's just shoddy storytelling. The animation's okay, especially given their more recent stiff output. The character designs especially are very striking, their lines are very strong and that sort of thing. But that's not enough to save this movie with its ridiculous plot, god-awful dialogue, and just anticlimactic ending. It's building up all to one thing, and it ends with Batman going, the Justice League is my own countermeasure. What? Fuck you, Batman. Fuck you. Go die in a dumpster fire. That's not okay. It's really too convoluted for its own good, and that frustrates me quite a bit. Maybe as a comic, being able to read it out at your own pace and not condense everything into just 70 plus minutes, maybe that works better. But as a film, it's too rushed to really focus in on why these things were happening. And it doesn't work. It's not engaging with the audience at all. Number 142 is X-Men 2, aka X2, X-Men United, which is just the dumbest title in the world, so I will not use it outside of that. This has some really strong things going for it. The acting and the writing for the characters are better than in the first film. It is better paced. It has a more interesting plot. Sadly, it falls victim to a lot of the same things the first X-Men movie does, and that's still trying to be the Matrix. I enjoyed X-Men 1 and X-Men 2 when they came out in theaters, but it did not age well because they're emulating the Matrix to such a weird degree, to where some of the fight choreography in this film against Lady Deathstrike, is that her name? Someone will correct me if I'm wrong there. Feels just like they're trying to have their own version of some of the cool Trinity fights from the Matrix films. It doesn't work, and it really largely plays out as something we've seen already, even by the first film standards, with a focus on Logan and Wolverine and his memories and stuff. It adds a few new elements that do work, but largely it's really boring until the action scenes, which are good, not great. I still hate the leather costumes. I'm always going to hate those leather costumes. They don't look good. They look goofy as shit. For all the talk of politics in both these first two films, they really aren't that politically inclined to have an interesting message or make a real strong point. The first movie tries with all that sinister stuff. This movie doesn't even bother with that, which is a bit obnoxious. Number 141 is another DC animated film. This is Batman Assault on Arkham Asylum. I don't know what it is about the Suicide Squad being translated into a feature-length format that seems so troubling to people. On paper, this should be a slam dunk. Here, we get something that's infinitely more watchable, more engaging, and more clever than David Ayer's live-action Suicide Squad film. But when compared to the other films of that nature, it does pale in such regards. Starts off great. There's an opening action number to start the film that sets the tone perfectly. It's very exciting. It's very kick-ass, and I'm ready for this movie to begin and engage me. And we only focus on a few of the members of the Suicide Squad, who are the people assaulting Arkham Asylum. And as such, the movie feels not only like it's playing favorites, but it's also trying to get you to like very specific characters, as opposed to actually being an ensemble about this group and the way this group works and all that, which is really where my frustration comes from. If you have an ensemble piece, it should be about that whole group. We shouldn't focus on just a few of them. Having a sort of ringleader of sorts does work, but the others still need character arcs. They still need motivation that the audience can find and point to and go, oh, that. The movie fails to provide that for most of these characters. With that being said, though, if you can overlook that, you'll find some solid action, a pretty cool Batman, and really good animation. It's just that bothers me when your whole basis of existing in terms of telling a story with these characters is because of how they work as a group. Does that make sense? Now we come to something that people might overlook when it comes to superhero stuff. But we come to a Crow film. The Crow, Wicked Prayer, starring Tara Reid, Edward Furlong, David Boreanaz, and motherfucking Dennis Hopper. If you heard that cast, scratch your head and said, huh, congratulations, you now have the exact same feeling I had when watching the film. This movie's really bad. The acting is not that good. It looks fairly cheap. The editing is... Imagine if you were forced to be typing while an angry tiger was swiping at your hands every time you went to hit a keyboard. That's kind of like the editing in this movie. Bloody, messy, weird, nonsensical stuff would come out from that. With all that being said, I do recommend this movie. It is fun. There's a wedding sequence near the end of the film with Dennis Hopper just yelling his lines in the most ridiculous way possible. That's hilarious. David Boreanaz and Tara Reid have no chemistry together, which should be a problem, but given everything else going on in this film, this adds to the hilarity. This is a so bad it's good film, and I do recommend it for all the wrong reasons. Just, you know, it sucks, so it's not very high on the list. It's number 140. 139 is Superman, Batman, Apocalypse, which simply fails to be interesting, at least for me. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. The voice acting's fine from what I remember. The animation is okay from what I recall. The pacing is iffy, but I don't remember totally hating it. I just didn't give a crap about anything going on in this film. I was so far removed from anything interesting or intriguing or clever or smart going on that I did not care. You follow? So that was something, to say the least. It existed. I watched it. I know I watched it. I watched it with somebody else. I don't remember who. My brother, maybe. It had no staying power whatsoever. Clearly, I didn't hate it, or else, you know, I'd be able to recall everything that happens in that film. Because leaving an impression, good or bad, is a bit better than just being so mediocre, I have forgotten almost everything about you. Because I've forgotten everything about it, it comes in, before it comes on, be objectively less confident, but have something about them that makes them worth discussing. Superman, Batman Apocalypse, I have nothing to say on it. It was a movie that existed. And there you go. Number 1 is Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. Which is such an inexplicable thing. It's such a weird film. I own both Power Rangers films to date. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie and Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. And I still actively watch the new seasons of Power Rangers. Ninja Steel is the latest one, in case you were curious. I enjoy the Power Rangers. It's big, goofy, superhero meets kaiju fun. Everything about that is in my wheelhouse, right? Turbo is the worst season of Power Rangers for me, for a variety of reasons, but it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work in part because of this movie. Where these powers come from are never explained. They show up to the Zordon's command center, and bam, there are new powers just there existing, even though they're not needed right now, and that kind of thing. It's really awkward. Makeup on the little alien dude from the beginning, not good. And the way it ties into some of the older Power Ranger characters feels cheap, and just really nothing about this movie works, even as a fan of Power Rangers. And that's frustrating and annoying. It's just a cheap cash-in in order to launch the latest series, and yes, this is the actual start of the Turbo series. You cannot just watch that show without having seen this movie. It's really awkward. It doesn't work. And man, that damn Blue Ranger is a terrible actor. Blade helped launch the current superhero craze that we're in, whether you realized it or not. Released in 1998, the first Blade movie, rated R, mind you, as all of them have been, was a huge hit. Massive. We got 2 direct sequels and a very short-lived TV show spin-off. The second Blade movie we'll get to in a bit. This is about Blade Trinity. What a fucked up mess this movie is. I realize it's not David S. Goyer's fault entirely, because he was forced to deal with a very diva-ish just before he went to jail. Because this movie launched him to the A-list, was refused to come out of his trailers if it was not scenes he was directly involved in. Barely learned his lines. The backstory to this movie is much more interesting than what appeared on screen. So I get some of the issues just from a shitty star, okay? That doesn't save the weird, awkward shoehorning of Dracula and his powers into the story. That doesn't save the fact that fucking Whistler's inexplicably alive in the beginning of this movie, just to be killed off 5 minutes later, when it's just doesn't matter by that point. He could have just stayed dead from the last film and have that been the impactful part of that movie, and they took it away just to re-kill him. Fuck you, movie. It has, I want to say it's Parker Posey in this movie. I don't remember, and I'm not going to look it up. Maybe it's Debbie Mazar. Somebody help me here. I can't be bothered, and I'm not going to be bothered. A wrestler, Triple H, maybe is in the film, and they're all fucking terrible. They're terrible in their roles. However, there are two really good things in this film that help make it not the worst thing ever. One is Natasha Lyonne. She plays some sort of blind tech specialist. I don't totally remember. She has a daughter, and her character is really interesting, really well realized and very well acted by the actress. And then we have Ryan Reynolds in this film, who is fucking fantastic. Ryan Reynolds steals every scene he's in and gives the movie a much needed, very important boost of energy and life that is sorely lacking in every other sequence of this film. To be very clear here, this does not save the film from the writing, even from Ryan's character, with a few exceptions. But it definitely, when he's on screen, you are at least invested because he's clearly having fun and nobody else really seems to be. I don't really, it's really got a secret underground thing of vampires trying to resurrect Dracula for reasons. Who the fuck knows? Who the fuck cares? The answer was nobody. Nobody. Everybody I know kind of hated this film. But, again, Natasha Lyonne's character, and far more importantly, Ryan Reynolds' insults are hilarious. He's a quip machine, as people have routinely used him for movies of this sort. And there's a moment where he's being beaten somehow. He's captured, and I can't remember if he's being beaten with like a nightstick or a whip or cat o' nine tails. I don't know. The female lead again, Parker Posey, Debbie Marzar, whoever the fuck that was, beating him, and he calls her cock-juggling thunder cunt, is the insult that he says to her. And it's one of the greatest insults in the history of mankind. I don't know if Ryan Reynolds made that up on the spot, or if that was actually in the script, but it's the only good invention of the script, if that was indeed on paper. It's fucking amazing. It's such a fucked up, mean, kind of brilliant insult. And in context, it makes total sense as to why he'd say that. Everything about that works. Everything about his character works in terms of the portrayal. The characterization's shoddy at best. But anytime Ryan Reynolds just hurl out an insult, the movie does kind of mostly work. A controversial choice for a lot of people, I think. And that's Tim Burton's original Batman film. There's a lot to like in the film. Michael Keaton's pretty damn good as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Jack Nicholson is gloriously over the top as the Joker. Production, set, and art design, well, pure Tim Burton, are phenomenal. The movies look so good, even to this day. The set designs look great. Maybe some of the green screen effects didn't hold up quite so well, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. Because the film's cool to look at. But a film is sadly more than just that sometimes. Because I feel the biggest reason this movie doesn't work is a plot that couldn't decide on the kind of tone it wants to be. It is a weird mix of crazy over-the-topness with the Joker and very sour, dour seriousness with Batman, and the two don't merge. And we have living fucking proof that these two ideas can in fact come together in a really good movie. That's of course The Dark Knight, which has that same sort of manic, crazed, psychotic energy from Heath Ledger's Joker and the very serious, moody stuff from Batman. And that film is amazing. Mostly amazing. Here, those two tones are completely at odds with each other, so I don't think Batman's one-liners are all that funny. I don't think they work that well. it's a movie that feels weirdly restrained for Tim Burton. And maybe that's why people were so shocked by Batman Returns. I don't know. But at least that film was unhinged enough to do its own thing. This isn't really bad, per se. It's just that it couldn't figure out what kind of superhero movie it really wanted to be. And as such, it wound up being kind of nothing. The Crow, City of Angels, is a mess. It's a mess in part because of our main character's performance. He's awful in this role. If you replaced the lead actor with almost anybody else of the right age and that respectable kind of build, you know, I would say this movie would probably be way better. He's so boring. He's such a blank slate that you do not care about him or his plight whatsoever. Which sucks, as there are some positives to the movie. The editing is excellent. The score is good. Not the soundtrack, the score. The soundtrack spent nothing on the first movie. It doesn't feel like a retread just to get another Crow movie out there. It feels different enough that it can kind of justify its own existence. But it does hit very similar points at times to where you can almost call it a remake, which might annoy some, and I can see why it would. But really, this movie struggles with its identity because of the lead actor and the lead villain, who's also really bad, but in two different ways. The lead actor, he's so emotionless. It's not what the role would require, you know, like, because of the reason you come back as this being with these powers from the dead and whatnot, it's because of emotion. So being emotionless just doesn't make sense given context. And then you've got all this craziness with the bad guy who is a cartoon villain in a movie that's not a cartoon, and that never sits well with me. See my distaste for Skyfall, for examples of such things. So as such, I don't think this movie works very well. However, with all that being said, this movie's worth watching because you will have a good time laughing your ass off. This movie is at such odds with itself that it's hilarious. The main actor is so bad, it's hilarious. The lead villain is so ridiculous, it's hilarious. I recommend watching it for that. You see a pattern here in the Crow films. Two really good ones, two very bad ones, but also a lot of fun. So hey, at least the Crow's got something going for it, right? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but Superman Doomsday was the first in the line of straight-to-DVD DC animated films of the modern era. Let me specify that. And some growing pains would definitely be learned because they did release masterpieces eventually. This film is just okay. Voice acting is existing, and I don't recall disliking it. Plot is frustrating, but more so from the source material than the actual way the movie interprets it. It's a movie that exists, and it's a movie that's hard to hate. It's a movie that I cannot hate because it doesn't necessarily do anything wrong. But that doesn't mean it did anything right. You see what I mean? First, Ghost Rider movie, which gets a lot right and then gets a lot wrong to where they balance each other out and make an absolutely mediocre film. I do believe the director's cut is the version to watch. It makes more sense, gives the characters, especially the bad guys, more context, more reason. to be doing what they're doing. So, to be fair, bear that in mind. But this isn't an actual review. I like Nick Cage's performance in this film. I really do. I think it's a good performance given the way the character's written, that sort of thing. CGI at the time I remember thinking was fairly good. I have not rewatched it in a while, so maybe it aged poorly. I don't know. And I love everything about Eva Mendes and her character. The way Eva Mendes looks, the way she acts, the way the character is written, everything about her character works perfectly. Then we have Sam Elliott as the caretaker slash an older ghost fighter, and he's also pretty good. His character gets the short end of the stick no matter which version of the movie you're watching, but just because it is Sam Elliott and he's so iconic with westerns, it adds something to it. I enjoy that. However, Wes Bentley plays the main bad guy, and he's terrible. The way some of his henchmen are defeated is laughably stupid. And the end, it's not that it's not a climax, it's that it doesn't work the way they intended it to, which makes it a bit frustrating. You see the problem here? It's outright bad things about it. One character is defeated just by making a whirlpool in a lake or a river or wherever it is they're in, and he gets sucked into it. That's dumb as fuck. But on the opposite side, we have ideas like Johnny Blaze living a very wholesome lifestyle. He doesn't drink, he doesn't gamble, he eats jelly beans as opposed to doing drugs, you know. And that idea is really interesting for somebody who made the deal with the devil to try to ward that off. That works for me. That's kind of cool. So you take these two things and you put them together in a movie, and you got a movie that's, if you're interested in the character, worth watching once. If you don't like the character, if you don't like any of the actors, don't bother. I was just talking about Tim Burton's first Batman movie. Let's talk about it second. Batman Returns is a better film than that. It is a more self-realized, engaging effort. It has a great villain in Catwoman and a really weird, fun performance from Christopher Walken as Shrek. I can't remember what his character's like. Gazillionaire who wants to build something. I don't totally remember. Point being, this is Tim Burton unhinged in the Batman universe, so it's a way more focused, energetic, interesting affair that gets dragged down immensely by the inclusion of the Penguin. Now, don't get me wrong, Danny DeVito as the character as written, fucking great. No one else could do that character. The makeup on him is fantastic. But he ruins what could have been something really interesting and really engaging, and makes it too many cooks in the kitchen type deal, too many things going on, and it does not gel with the rest of the story being told. Bruce Wayne falling in love with Kyle, both of them not totally knowing that one's Batman, one's Catwoman, really engaging stuff. Much more so than in The Dark Knight Rises, because that film's a flaming pile of shit. Having a sort of more realistic human counterpart to be a bad guy off of the more fantastical Catwoman stuff would have worked very well for the Shrek, Max Shrek character. That's Christopher Walken. And once again, we have a cooler looking Gotham than whatever flaws the Tim Burton films have. They have the greatest looking Gotham City in live action films to date. The Gotham is amazing visually here. With all that being said, I don't care about the Penguin's play at all. I don't care that he's going to blow up the city. I don't. Save him for the third movie. it's overstuffed. And being overstuffed means it gets really boring for a long stretch of time. There are things that definitely work about it, and there are things that definitely don't. So it's neither good nor hateable. Is Megamind, a movie I was not looking forward to when I saw the first few trailers. A movie I started getting more interested in when I read the reviews of it and had some friends who really enjoyed it. And a movie I liked exactly one half of once I saw it. The plot is ostensibly about Megamind winning. There is a superhero in Mega City, Metro City, whatever the city is called, voiced by Brad Pitt, and they're nemesis. So eventually, in the course of a battle, Megamind wins. Then he gets to take over the city. He gets everything he wants, and he gets really bored by it. This is coupled with a romance subplot between the female lead, voiced by Tina Fey. I don't remember the character's name, don't ask. That is meant to kind of more humanize him now that he no longer has somebody to fight against. Everything I just described is great in the film. Really clever, funny, maybe a few dumb jokes that kids will laugh at but adults won't care for, maybe. But definitely interesting, good stuff. Then we have the other side of things, and this will be spoilers. Spoiler heavy here, so if you haven't seen it, it's not necessarily awful. It just wastes its potential in the worst kind of way. So if you don't want spoilers, jump ahead a few minutes, try to find the next entry. Anyways. So, Tina Fey's character works with Jonah Hill, who's a cameraman or something, and he becomes obsessed with trying to create another superhero to fight the bad guy, and that goes wrong. So that actually ends up being the supervillain at the end, and Megamind becomes the superhero. Which wouldn't be that bad if they handled it a little bit differently. I think the reasoning behind Jonah Hill's character doing that does not work, personally speaking, but if you can buy it, alright. More importantly, it's revealed that Brad Pitt's superhero character wasn't defeated. He got very tired of being a superhero and wanted to retire, and used the last plot by Megamind, the one in which the superhero was supposedly defeated, into faking his own death and then just relaxing and being a normal guy for a little while. I hate this. I hate this so much. It's so stupid. It doesn't add anything to the character arc of Megamind. It does not add anything to the plot. It doesn't give it any layers or anything. It kind of takes away certain aspects. Where is a supervillain still a supervillain if he has no one to fight against? If there's no superhero, he gets what he wants, and basically all he wants is he's basically governor. That's it. He's mayor. I'm sorry, I said governor. I'm going to say mayor. He's basically mayor of the city. He gets a lot of things, and he gets really bored with it, as I imagine lots of people who run things do. And then it's him slowly coming around to realizing that he was wrong, because there will always be these things, be it the superhero Jonah Hill invented and lost control of, or what, that will need to be fought against, that are way worse for the city. That's an interesting character arc. And I feel having Brad Pitt's character alive takes away from that. And it's very annoying to me. This is not a movie I've ever bothered to rewatch. A few clever gags, solid voice acting, but a story that needs to be rewritten entirely to really work. Superman, Batman, Public Enemy sees them fighting each other. And don't get me wrong, it's way more interesting than Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. But why they're fighting each other escapes me. how it's resolved escapes me. The minutia of the story, not the broad outlines, but the actual specifics of this story escape me. With that being said, then, why did it exist if it's not memorable? There was no reason to tell this story in this way at all. 129, The Adventures of Sharkboy and Lava Girl, is a glorious mess of insanity from Robert Rodriguez. Robert Rodriguez makes kids movies, he makes really fucking awesome adult films. And kids movies are very hit or miss. First Spy Kids movie, okay. Second Spy Kids movie, amazing. Third Spy Kids movie, bad. Fourth Spy Kids movie, fucking terrible. On Lava Girl, weirdly misguided. The CGI does not hold up well at all, but because everything's in a weird dreamlike state for most of the film, it can get by on some of that at the very least. However, that doesn't mean we should just give it a free pass on that, because there are things that look bad in CGI wise. Far more importantly, the characterizations are very thin. Taylor Lautner has a song about dreams. What do you think of his acting? And I generally try not to. There's a reason he went into acting and not singing, most definitely, and it's grating to the ears. The bad guy is too easily defeated. If you have kids, they'll like it. It's bright, it's colorful, shiny, it does have a good moral, and it's something different. If you don't have kids, I can't see you enjoying or getting anything out of this movie. $128 is another real mixed bag. Man of Steel was WB's second effort to launch a DC superhero film franchise in the vein of Marvel's blockbuster Juggernaut, after the failure pile that was the Green Lantern. And it's a movie that should not have a plot, is how I described it, and will continue describing it. When it doesn't have a plot, and it's simply about vagabond Clark Kent going from town to town, taking odd jobs, trying to survive, figure out his place in the world, and we intercut that with his early life on the kid farm with Mo and Paul, played by Diane Lane and Kevin Costner respectively. It's actually amazing. Not just good, but flat out amazing. This movie understands the character of Clark Kent very well. And it understands Superman for a modern age very well. For people who claim Superman is boring, I challenge them to watch this film and still tell me that, because he's not a boring character for the first half of this movie. He's a very interesting character, struggling to come to terms with the fact that he's not human, and he doesn't know what that means in his life. And I really enjoyed all of that. Amy Adams as Lois Lane is really plucky and great, and she and Henry Cavill, who plays Clark Kent / Superman, really good together. There's so much to like about this movie. And then it decides to have a goddamn plot and ruins everything. Everything. The plot sees General Zod discovering Superman is on Earth and wants to take him out so he can take over the Earth and create a new Krypton. What? Okay, sure. That's not the worst Superman plot I've heard. That would be Superman Returns, in case you're curious. But it handles this in very repetitive, shockingly stupid-looking fights. That's all the actual plot amounts to, by the way. Is Michael Shannon, who I was really excited for in the role, coming out, overacting his fucking ass off with a stupid Julius Caesar haircut, yelling a lot about how Superman and he are greater than humanity, and then they punch each other through buildings. Zack Snyder is an amazing filmmaker given the right material. 300, great movie. His remake of Dawn of the Dead, well, not better than the original. It is different enough to actually warrant existing, and way better than people thought it was going to be before it came out. There's a reason it was a huge success. He made Watchmen into a watchable, filmable, really excellent piece of work. I understand if you dislike some of the changes he made to that, but it's as close as you'll ever get without it being a miniseries. Sucker Punch is my favorite movie of all time. Hate me in the comments, alright people? A lot of that has to do with his visual style. I love his visual style. I love his camera work. Oh, Legends of the Guardians, the Owls of Ga'Hoole. Gorgeous. Gorgeous movie. Oh my god, your eyes will bleed at how pretty that film is. That being said, the fight scenes in Man of Steel feel like they have things edited out of them, so they feel weirdly disjointed. So they don't look very good because of that. I don't know if they had things edited out of them. It's just the way they look. Like, there's a sequence where they're both flying and the camera's zooming in on them, but instead of just being one whole push, it's like this. It's very jumpy for reasons I can't figure out, and that makes the movie an eyesore. And then there is all the collateral damage, which I'm actually... This gets to the controversial parts. Is it a problem with Superman caused all that? Yes. But Man of Steel is building up to Superman being Superman. Throughout most of this movie, until the literal last, minute of the film, he's actually not Superman. It's building up to him becoming the icon we all know, becoming the savior of humanity that we know, becoming conscientious enough to try and not do that sort of thing. I understand the complaints. I just think they're not looking at it within context of the movie. The bigger complaint being when he snaps Zod's neck. I'm actually okay with that as well. To the point where it's either snap Zod's neck or let these people die. And yeah, alright, fine, collateral damage. But that's the moment where he realizes what's going on. He realizes the collateral damage. He chooses to do something about it. And then it breaks his bloody heart. And I think Henry Cavill sells that really, really well. So yeah, the most controversial aspect of the movie, I'm fine with. I just really dislike the plot and most of the action scenes in the film. Diane Lane, she's amazing as Ma Kent. Amazing. Very tender, very loving, exactly as I've always pictured Ma Kent to be. Kevin Costner as Pa Kent is mind-blowingly fantastic. Again, this movie understands that aspect of the Superman mythos and of Clark Kent, and Pa Kent is great. He's written great. He has interesting things to say, and I really love the way Kevin Costner portrays him. It's amazing. But then we have a plot that's quite literally the plot of Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, only instead of alien robots, it's alien beings with superpowers who look like humans. And I really, really, really dislike that. Really don't care for the plot of the movie. If it was just about Superman trying to find his place in the world, I would probably claim it the best Superman movie. That's about 45 to 50 minutes of this 2-hour or so film. The rest involves lots of punching and a plot I just can't give two shits about. In theory, I should like Man of Steel more than I do. Especially given who's in it, who directed it, yada yada. And I really do think Henry Cavill is the second best Clark Kent and Superman that we've seen on film. The scripts he's given to work with don't totally work for the characterization, so he just hasn't had a fair run yet. Yeah, all that to say, I don't dislike it, but I don't like it either.